Why focusing on race will definitely end poorly. My name is Jared Mello, and this is Mello Mentoring. Today's video is going to be more about current events, but I also talk about dating, relationships, psychology, mental health, and supplements that help them. And I also have an interview series called Everything Eccentric, where I interview people that have done something interesting or I think will be an educational or entertaining conversation. Also, my book, Radical Self-Respect, Avoid Falling for the Same BS, is available now on Amazon, the Kindle version. The audiobook version's coming soon. But back to today's video. Focusing on race, it will not end well. And there's a couple quotes I have that will illustrate this point. First of all, Newton's third law of motion. It says that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And we're seeing this already with the All Lives Matter people. They're getting annoyed at the Black Lives Matter people because they're feeling left out. And they want to say all lives matter. Now, I understand and I agree that Black lives do matter. And the All Lives Matter people, to me, they don't seem to get it. But it's human nature that this is what happens. Right? When we focus on one thing, there will be an equal and opposite reaction. It doesn't make it right, but it's reality. And that's what we're going to focus on in this video. Reality. Not what's right, but how things are. And if we really want to get to the bottom of things and really help people of color, we need to work with realities. Secondly, there's another quote by Yanni Nicolas, and it says, "The hurt feelings of the privileged have wiped out nations." And it's absolutely true. And that's part of this. This divide that's happening between All Lives Matter people and BLM, Antifa, and skinheads or white supremacists, and the privileged class, white folks, they certainly are privileged. But just the very word puts people on the defensive and hurts people's feelings, and then they get entrenched in their own views. And that's part of the problem to me. It's not right, but again, we're going to focus on reality and how people are. This is why the focus on race has nowhere good to go except causing conflicts. And here's the other thing. How do we measure success for people of color? How do we measure a lack of racism, etc.? Is it equality of outcomes? Is that what it is? Because I don't think that's going to be a good metric. Equality of opportunity is what is needed, much more so than the equality of outcome. And measuring racism is extremely difficult. It just is. And I agree with Sam Harris in his most recent podcast. He said, the goal should be for the color of someone's skin to be morally and politically irrelevant. And if you do not agree with that, take note of who also doesn't agree with that. White supremacists. Now, I've been seeing a lot of this one meme out there that says, my goal is not to be colorblind, but to see where people have came from and respect their backgrounds. I think that skin color can be morally and politically irrelevant, and we can respect someone's background. We can respect an Italian person's background, an Asian person's background, an Irish person's background, an African American person's background. And the skin color thing can still be irrelevant. Because the more we focus on it, I think the worse things are going to get. And they have these racial bias trainings or unconscious bias trainings, etc. And they don't really seem to work. They don't have much of a track record of success. And that's why I agree with Sam Harris here that we want it to be morally and politically irrelevant. And so what are my solutions? Because I don't like to talk about problems without coming up with some solutions. And I think one of the best things will be trying to help out the poor in this country. Because one of the biggest areas of discrimination to me in this country is discrimination against the poor. And it just so happens that people of color are often more likely to be poor. So if we help out the poor, give people education, in particular fiscal education, it will also help people of color disproportionately. Because they're often ones that are poor too. And helping out of the poor can bring people together. white people, Asian people, Hispanic people, people of color, they can all get together and come together on the agreement that the poor need help. And to me, education is so important. And doing things like investing from a young age, from high school, when our bills are low. That's how we break intergenerational poverty. And it's something that can be measured. It's something that will help. It'll help the outcomes. Now, what will help? They'll say police from being less racist. And I also think, though, that police, a discrimination they have is against the poor. They're much less likely to discriminate against someone who's wealthy. And I know it's anecdotal evidence, but when I drove a 2006 Mazda 3, I was getting pulled over all the time. It was a little beat up, and I was low-hanging fruit. Now I have a 2019 Honda Civic, and now I never get pulled over. Am I driving any differently? Do I look any differently? Or does it just look like I have more money now, so I'm probably less of a troublemaker? That's what I'm talking about. So, to reiterate this video here, less emphasis on race. More emphasis on things that will actually help people of color. And racism, it's like I always ask people, and I'm trying to bring coaching into the current events world and the social issues world, is what does success look like for Black Lives Matter? What does it look like? And maybe they'll say, no racism anywhere. But how do you measure no racism anywhere? It's really difficult, and it's really hard to measure these things or even try to track how well they are doing. And it makes you wonder, what are their true goals? I know one of them was to get rid of STEM. I learned that from Brett Weinstein on Joe Rogan's podcast the other day. I don't think that's very good. But helping of the poor people, helping with income inequality, trying to get the most amount of opportunities, equality of opportunities for everyone. These are the things that I think are imperative and will help all of the issues that Black Lives Matter should be worrying about. Helping their people, helping them do better in this world. And when we keep on focusing on the skin color piece and how white people are privileged, there's just going to be people that get resentful about that, and there's going to be people that get upset about it. And we see it in the All Lives Matter thing. We see it in that privileged post about how privileged it is to be a rioter and a looter and have people defend you, how privileged it is to be this. It's the opposite side. There's always going to be an opposite side. For every action, there will be an equal and opposite reaction. Newton's third law of motion. We cannot forget this. And if we know Yanni Nicolas' quote about the hurt feelings of the privileged have wiped out nations, if we can see that coming, don't we then have a responsibility to do something different? Don't we then have a responsibility to avoid that oncoming train? Because we know, hurt feelings do wipe out nations. So we know that. So some people may say, well, it's up to the people whose hurt feelings there are to not be hurt. And I hate to tell you, but that's not human nature. That's not reality. Newton's third law of motion is more reality. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So the hurt feelings thing is just going to be. But if we change our focus, we shift our emphasis away from race and instead on helping the poor, instead on helping income inequality, and instead on trying to get more equality of opportunity, that's something I don't think the other side will be extremely resentful of. Maybe the wealthy might kick and scream, but go screw them. Screw what they say about it. They're doing really damn well. But poor white people, poor Asian people, poor Hispanic people, poor people of color, they can all band together over this issue of income inequality. They can all band together on discrimination against the poor. And the kickback on that, we won't be against ourselves anymore if we do that. So, that's all I have for today's video. And take to heart, please, what I said. Hopefully, we can get rid of this emphasis on race and try to make the color of someone's skin morally and politically irrelevant. And again, like Sam Harris said, if you don't agree with that, take note of who also doesn't agree with that: white supremacists. So I implore people, less focus on the color of someone's skin, more focus on the content of their character. More focus on individuals, because we are all individuals, and more focus on income inequality and equality of opportunity. That's where I think our attentions should be more focused, in education, because education is how a lot of those things happen. And paying attention to current events, paying attention to what our government officials are doing, what our elected officials are doing. And never forget, they're public servants. The people we vote in, to Congress, to the senators, to representatives, to the president, they are public servants. And it's like George Carlin said, "Aren't you a public servant? Get me a glass of water." And that's what they should never forget, that they're serving us. And so it's up to us to pay attention. Like Dwight D. Eisenhower said, politics should be the part-time profession of every U.S. citizen. I think that's part of our personal responsibility of citizens of America. So with that, thank you for watching. Please comment below on what you think about this video. Did you like it, not like it, agree, disagree? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you.